Hey everyone, welcome back to part 11 of the full stack trading app tutorial series. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Tulip Indicators. And Tulip Indicators is just another technical analysis indicator library for those of you who like to build trading strategies on top of indicators. Not everyone uses indicators, but some people do. And I thought I would talk about this Tulip Indicators library. I've never actually used it before, but in previous videos, if you watch some of the candlestick videos that I created, the technical screening app that we made, we actually use TAlib, which is a popular technical analysis library as well. So I haven't done any kind of thorough analysis and comparison of these two libraries. Maybe that'd be a good idea to do at some point, but TAlib is just a popular technical analysis library, and Tulip Indicators is an alternative to that library. It looks like it has 104 indicators, and there's a big indicator list here. So you can scroll down depending on which indicators you're interested in. It may or may not have that indicator as part of the library. So what we're going to do is just install this Python package and try out a couple just simple indicators and add them to our full stack app here. That way we can filter on an indicator, and you can decide. I'm just going to add a couple simple ones, and you can decide any other indicators you want to add and store in the database. So I'm just going to start with a couple, and then that will define a pattern we can use to add more and more of these indicators to our application. So before we get started, as usual, I want to thank anyone that donated recently. And just after this last video, Jay Sniper, who's had a lot of great comments on the channel, has made another donation. So I really appreciate. He seems to be really digging the channel. So thanks a lot, Jay, aka Sniper, for contributing once again. And lots of new videos are coming. So I'll leave a link below for anyone who wants to contribute. And let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here's the Tulip Indicators library at tulipindicators.org. Brief description, but I believe this library itself is written in C, right? So it's really fast, but as usual, there's Python bindings for it. So if you look up a Tulip Indicators Python, right, you'll get TulipPy, which is just a Python package that lets us use Tulip Indicators. So the first thing we'll need to do, as usual, is install the package. The way my system is configured, I run pip3 install TulipPy, and that installs that library, the Tulip Indicators Python library, into my virtual environment here, and it should be ready to use. And so first we need to think about where we want to use these indicators in our application. So I'm thinking we'll have a filter, another filter here to filter on this indicator, right? To filter on whatever indicator we decide to use, and we'll click submit, and it'll filter it down based on some value of that indicator, right? And so we could put this in our routes, right? So in our main.py, we hit a URL, and we could dynamically pull price data out of our database and then apply an indicator and filter the results and then return it to the browser. But that would be fairly inefficient, because if you think about it, we have 9,000 stocks here, right? And if we browse our stock table and our stock price table, you'll see we actually have over 1 million records, right? Because we have 200 bars, I think, so far for every single stock. So 200 times 9,000, right? And so we have 1.8 million, a little bit less than that. I think it's 1.6 or 1.7 million, because some of these include IPOs and such that do not yet have 200 bars of data. And so we don't want to pull a couple million records from our database, pull them all into pandas or a NumPy array, then filter them, and then output them again. So, and especially since these values aren't really going to change, but once a day, if we're storing them on the daily time frame. So what we'll do is instead, let's just populate them on the way in. So each time our populate prices runs, right, we can just, when a new bar comes in, calculate the RSI or moving average or whatever, and then just store that right there in a column on the database. That way it's pre-calculated, right, and it's not going to change, right? So the RSI for October 30th for a stock is going to be the same, right? or whatever it was, the 29th. It's just historical data, right? So there's no reason to calculate that over and over again dynamically from the web here, right? So the only reason we would calculate dynamically is when we're fetching the data in real time or on a schedule like we did in our opening range breakout strategy. And so we can always do a calculation in real time as well. But what I thought we could do is use one of these indicators as a filter that helps us come up with trade ideas. And so we could select more stocks that we have a bullish or bearish bias on based on one of these indicators. And yeah, that could just be stored in our database. So when new price bars come in for the day, let's just store the value of an indicator. So how do we use Tulip indicators? So all we really need to do is, looks like there's a couple of examples here. And so it looks like you have to import TulipPy and NumPy. It uses NumPy arrays, which we've talked about in the past. And so at the top here, I'm just going to import TulipPy. And I'm just going to use the long name. I don't mind typing TulipPy and NumPy. Okay, so I'm importing both of those, and you should already have NumPy installed, but in case you don't, you can install NumPy like that as well. We've already used this in plenty of tutorials on this channel, so it's already going to be there. Okay, and so the next thing, all you really need to do, it's very easy to use. You just pass it a NumPy array of prices or numbers, just like that, and then you just call the indicator that you want to run. So you see like ti.sma, and you just pass it this NumPy array of prices, and you just give it a period. And so, yeah, so simple moving average, that's very simple. So in our populate prices, right, we're looping through all the stocks in our database, and we're going through those symbols and chunks and populating the prices. But while we're populating the prices, why don't we go ahead and populate a simple moving average and store it? So insert into stock price, right? Let's add a column for storing the simple moving average and RSI as just simple examples. And so we have our database structure here for stocks and stock prices, and let's just keep track of those two things over time. So I'm going to add a new column, and I'm going to call it, so this is in create_db.py, where we create our stock price table. And so we'll keep track of the SMA 20, so the 20-day simple moving average, like that. So we'll do SMA 20, and can it be null? Yes, it can, because if it's a new IPO and only has one bar of data, there's going to be no 20-day simple moving average yet, so we won't have it. And so we'll put this there, and so we'll store the SMA 20, and that's going to be, we can just leave the data type out. SQLite actually doesn't enforce that, and so we'll do the SMA 50, and we'll do, let's just store the RSI, and then the default RSI is 14, so we'll store the RSI 14 just like that, and any of those values can be null, and so we just put the column name, and that's it. Okay, and so what we can do is we can drop our database again, right? So we'll start from scratch, and then we can create the database again, right? And so once we do that, we have this empty table, and I can verify it here, and I type schema, and you'll see my stock price table has SMA 20, SMA 50, and RSI 14. All we need to do is insert them. So quit out of that, and let's go to our populate stocks. We'll let our stocks populate, right? Okay, let that go. And then I'll go to populate prices, and we'll actually modify the script to insert into the RSI. So these are the columns we're inserting into. And so I'm going to insert into SMA 20, SMA 50, and RSI 14. And there's going to be 3 values. So I put 3 of these question marks as placeholders. So question mark and question mark like that. Okay. And then we're going to have 3 variables that get inserted. And so we're going to calculate these on the fly. And so I'm going to name the variables SMA 20, SMA 50, and RSI 14 for convenience. And I'm going to comment out this insert for now. So we're not going to insert prices into our database yet, or any of this stuff, until we verified that we know how to use Tulip indicators and that we can calculate these. Okay. So before we go through and run this new code for every single stock symbol that we have, all 9,000 of them, let's go ahead and make sure we can do it for one correctly first. And so let's make sure we understand how to use Tulip indicators to calculate some indicator on one particular stock. And so in our script, we go through all the stocks in our database symbol by symbol. So we're looping through this list of symbols. Let's override this symbol list, and let's just right here in line say symbols equals, and then we'll just do a list of one stock. And so we'll just do Microsoft and calculate that value first. So now this should just be getting the bar set for Microsoft. And so let's just print the bar set here. So this would be, let's put it outside of here. So for symbol and bar sets, let's just print bar sets symbol. And just so you see the bar set for Microsoft stock, make sure we got it, right? So there it is. We have a bunch of bar objects that are in a list. And so now that we have this list, let's just get a list of the closes. So the way Tulip Indicators works is we just need to pass it some data, and that data is in the form of a NumPy array, which is just this array or list of numbers, right? We can build a list of numbers, fine. And then for the SMA here, right, tulippy.sma, we give it our list of numbers and we give it a period. And since we have a period, we want the SMA 20 and the SMA 50. Let's get a list of the most recent closes, for instance. And so what we'll do here is build a list of numbers in line using a list comprehension. So we'll say recent closes equals a list, and we'll loop through and get the attributes. So you see how we have bar.o, bar.h, l, and c, right? Those are the attributes of these objects. So we'll do bar.c, so we'll get the close for bar in bar sets symbol. And that should get us our recent closes. So let's see what that looks like. So I'll print it. Okay, and let's see if we get the recent closes for Microsoft. So that's just a list of all the closes that we have. And so if we printed the length of that, so len recent closes, that's probably all of the bars we fetched, right? So we fetched 100 bars, it looks like, at a time. So what we'll do is we'll say if the length of recent closes is greater than 50, greater than or equal to 50, then we can calculate these SMAs we need. So we can do tulippy dot, and here's all of our indicators. So I have an autocomplete in Visual Studio Code, so I recommend installing the Python extension. And so we'll do the SMA, and we just say we need the data. So the data is just a NumPy array of closes. So I'll do NumPy.array, and then give it a list of recent closes, right? And then we just give it a period. So we'll say period equals, we want the 20 period. So I'll say SMA 20 equals that, and SMA 50 equals, and we'll copy this, right? Okay, so we'll say the SMA 50 is the SMA of the recent closes, and give it the 50 period moving average, right? And let's see if we got something. So we'll print the SMA 20, and then print SMA 50, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I run this, and look at this. We have two arrays here, and so this is a moving average, so we'll see a series of values. And so this first NumPy array looks like the 20-day moving average. The current 20-day moving average is probably this last number, and then the current 50-day moving average would be this last number here. And just to verify that, we can look in TradingView or whatever your charting platform is of choice. And so if I went to Microsoft and went to the full featured chart, and let's just add moving averages, and it looks like I have it. So the 20-day moving average, if I go to the end here, it looks like that's 213.25. And yeah, so it's pretty close here, 213.23. So there's slight, like a penny difference in the prices here between TradingView and getting them from Polygon. So there's that. And then if I change this here, so if I click this indicator and then change it to the 50-day moving average, you should see a number that's pretty similar. So 212.28, and so we have 212.25.6. So yeah, really close. So I feel good about those numbers. And then we can also calculate the RSI 14. And so we'll just do tulipi.rsi, give it the recent closes, right? And give it a period. So we'll just use the default period of 14. And let's print the RSI as well. So I'll print RSI 14. And we'll run it again. And we should have, let's look, the last three, it looks like it's like about 39, 41, 39.5. And then on the bottom here, I added the RSI indicator to this Microsoft chart. And look at that. So the last three we have, so if you look here, you'll see the value. So the last three would be about 39, 41.5, 39.5. Yeah, so that looks about right. So that looks good. I think the calculations and prices are just very slightly different between platforms. So very close. That seems to be the correct value. So we have a good sanity check to make sure we're calculating these indicators correctly. And then so now all we have to do is when we're populating our prices, let's go ahead and just insert those values. So we already put these placeholders in for SMA 20, SMA 50, and RSI 14, and we'll just insert them. So what I want to do now is see if I can just capture, I don't need all these values, I just want the last value. So whenever the script runs over and over again, we're just going to update, you know, the last row of the table. And so let's see if we can do like an index here, and we'll do the -1th value. So we'll just get the one off the end, and let's see if that works. So this will get us SMA 20, SMA 50, and RSI 14. And those are our most recent values. So those three numbers there, and those are going to be the ones we use to insert. So we're just getting the last values here, which is good. Okay, so we're able to get those values. And so now we're going to insert for every bar. We're going to insert every bar when we're populating prices. And then on the last one, we'll actually populate this value, this last value, okay? So what we'll do is, let's just say if current date equals bar.tdate. So yeah, we'll do this calculation only once. So we'll say a recent close is equal that list comprehension, and we'll say inside of this for bar, when we're looping through all the bars, we'll just say if the length of recent closes is greater than or equal to 50, and the current date, so the date this is running, is equal to whatever bar we're on. So we'll say bar.t.date like that. Then we'll do this calculation, and then that'll be the SMA and so forth we use. Otherwise, we'll do SMA 20, comma SMA 50, RSI 14 equals a none, comma none, comma none. So we're doing an assignment, tuple assignment here, and so those will be a null. Okay, so there's only going to be one. The last insert here is going to be the one that inserts the SMA and the RSI indicator values. Okay, otherwise it's going to be null. Okay, so we're just going to run that calculation one time, and yeah, let's see if this works. So I'll run this just for Microsoft stock and commit it. So I'll run that, and equals current date equals bar.t.date. I need a double equals. Okay, run it again. I have current date, it's not defined, so let's see, date. Okay, it looks like I just have date.today.iso format, so I didn't put it in a variable. So I'll just check if when the script is running, if the date of this bar is equal to today's date, then we'll do this calculation and insert it. So I'm going to run it now, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to open my database in the SQLite browser. So I'm going to open this, and so I'm going to go in Full Stack App, open the database, right, and then we should be able to execute SQL, select star from stock price. Okay, and since we just populated the database, we should just have Microsoft stock here. So stock ID is 5293 apparently, And so you'll see we have SMA 20 is null, SMA 50 is null all the way down, RSI 14 is null all the way down. This is June all the way till the very end. And it looks like for October 30th, it is also null, which means we have an error, so we did something wrong. So let's go ahead and check this out again. Bar T date, and so let's see what we can do here. So comment this out real quick, and let's just see what these dates look like. Maybe that condition was wrong, so I'll print a date.today.iso format like that, and then print bar.t.date like that, and let's see what that looks like. So it runs through, and typo run through. Okay. All right. So yeah, 1030 equals 1030. Why is it still none when I print out the SMA 20? It must be a data type thing. So I'll print the type of a date.iso format. And then I'll print the type of bar.t.date. And let's see, is there a type difference here? So print the type. And so let's see, is there a type difference? Yeah, so one is a date time format like that. So we'll do date.iso format like that. Let's see if that works. Okay, so they're both strings now, so that should actually work. And so what I'll do is uncomment that. Okay, and I'll add .iso format like that and make sure the dates are equivalent. And then we should get the correct calculation. I'll do a quick delete from stock price to clear it out. Okay, and then now I'm going to close this. So I'll save the changes. Okay, and then now I'm going to open the database again after I run this. So let's see if we can insert these again. So I'm going to run this, runs through, and let's see if it inserted the correct values. So I'm going to open my AppDB, and I'm going to select star from stock price. We go through, we have nulls, and at the very end, right now you see on October 30th, we have SMA 20 is 213, SMA 50 212, and RSI 14 is 39.5. So that is great. We can successfully use Tulip indicators and cache or store a local copy of these indicators. That way we can use them for filters on our web application. And so now that this works for Microsoft, I'm going to delete from stock price just to clear this out. I'm going to run my entire populate prices script for every stock in the database. That way we have indicator values for all of them. So I'll run Python 3 populate prices, and before I do that, I'm going to delete that symbols part so it'll loop through all the symbols I have, and I'm going to let that run and do its calculations. All right, so this ran through all of the symbols, and let's see if it worked. So I'll go through to the database browser here, and we'll open it up again, and then we'll get projects, full stack app, AppDB, okay? And then we'll go to execute SQL, and I'll select star from stock price where RSI 14 is not null. Okay, so let's just see if we have all these indicators calculated. If I run that and you look, we have 7,799 rows where it's not null, and so all of them are calculated correctly. So all of the dates are October 30th because we said we only wanted to calculate it for the last bar that got inserted into the database. And so we have current SMA 20, SMA 50, and RSI 14 for all of our stocks. So how do we make this more useful to us? Let's go ahead and add this to the interface. And so what I thought we could do is, since we have all this extra space here doing nothing, why don't we add columns for those indicators so that we can show the values in like a summary. So we'll show some information about the current date on this front page table here. And so in our index.html, what we can do is we have the table, and let's add headings. And so we'll just say close. Let's just show the closing price. We'll show the RSI 14. We'll show the SMA 20 and the SMA 50, right? And then we'll show those values and I'll just call it price. Okay, and then as we're looping through, since we have all of these, we'll need to get these from the stock price table. And so I'll go back to main.py. So in our index route here for the home page, why don't we write another query to just fetch all of these indicator values for every stock and just put those into a dictionary. So let's see, what would that query look like? So let's select the symbol. So select the symbol, comma, RSI 14, comma, SMA 20, comma, SMA 50. Okay. And the close, let's just get the closing price from, and since these values are in different tables, we'll need to select from stock, join stock price on stock price dot stock ID. So that's our foreign key reference equals stock.id, right? And if we do that, and then where date equals 2020 10 30 like that, and then let's see what that query returns if that gives us a good format. So that looks pretty good. So we have just the symbol, RSI 14, SMA 20, SMA 50, and the closing price for all of them that we're able to calculate it for. This includes some new IPOs, so probably those are the ones that say null for the current date. So that looks pretty good. And so let's just take this query, our summary query, and let's create something called indicator rows. Okay, so we'll do a cursor.execute, and then we'll take that query I just wrote. Okay, select symbol, blah, blah, blah. And then instead of that, we'll do a question mark for a placeholder, and we'll do a date.today.iso format, and that'll give us a date in the correct format for the current day. And we'll say indicator rows equals cursor.fetch all. And then let's loop through and build some type of dictionary. So we'll say for row and indicator rows. So we'll create an indicator dictionary. So we'll be able to look up we'll give a key of the symbol, and then it will have a value of the indicator values. And so I'm going to call it indicator values. And then I'm going to create a new dictionary. And as we're looping through these indicator rows, I'll say indicator values, and then we'll say row, and then it'll be the row symbol, and then we'll set its value just equal to the row, right? And then we should be able to do a quick lookup from our template. So if I do indicator values right here, we should have this key value data structure here. So let's run our web server again. Okay, and if I hit the front route, I get an internal server error, which is not what we want. And so it says it has trouble with this ISO format guy here. I think it's an extra parentheses. Okay, indicator rows equals. Okay, so let's just set this to a variable. That way it's easy to read. So current date. Okay, and then cursor execute, and we need current date like that. Okay, so that syntax is correct. And let me refresh. Okay, and you see how we have this big dictionary of keys, and they each have a reference to they each have a value of a SQLite row object, which is good. And so we'll just pass these indicator values. So indicator values, we'll pass it to our template like that. And then as we're looping through on our index.html, let's see if we can access these. So we'll do, in our template, we can have indicator values. And then we know the stock symbol as we're looping through. So I'll put stock.symbol. And then we'll do dot RSI 14 like that. Let's see. And that results in an internal server error. And we'll say it says dict object has no attribute AAICB. And why is that? Let's see if we can find that symbol in our stock table. So select star from stock where symbol equals AAIC-B. So that must be Yeah, so we have this symbol. So do we not have a stock price for, so let's start from stock price where stock ID equals 16. And it looks like we have no prices for that stock, so it's not going to show up. So we want to correct that error. So in our template, we don't want to access any dictionary keys that aren't there. And so we'll just say if, so we'll do if indicator values stock.symbol. And let's see if that works. So we'll just say if it's there, then print it. So go here, and there you go. So if it's there, then we print it. Okay, so it's just putting none for the ones where it's not there, which is fine. Okay, so if it's there, we're going to print it. Otherwise, it's just going to be like NA, right? So let's print these indicator values. So we have price, RSI 14, close. I'm going to add 4 of these, right? 3, 4. And then this is going to be the close, the RSI 14, the SMA 20, and the SMA 50. Okay, if I do that, and look at that, we have all of these nice values here. So we have all of these nice values. If we want, we could actually round those down. So in here, we could say if that, if the RSI is there, then we could use one of these filters. So Ginger 2 has a round filter. Ginger 2, and then so you just use a pipe is how it works. So if I do this pipe round, so we check whether it's set first, and then we just put pipe round like that. And then now if I refresh it, internal server error, we need a closing end if. Oh, we have an extra closing end. If that is set, then we round. Okay, good. So I'm rounding the value like that. So that's good. So let's go ahead and do that for all of these. So if close is already fine. So if SMA 20, then we'll round it and then put an end if. And then we'll also do that for SMA 50. Okay, and good. And I think we need one more end if. So I'm going to indent this. If, end if, end if, and end if. And then one more round. All right, cool. So that looks a little bit prettier. I think we can round it differently. This looks like it's rounding to the nearest integer. I believe I can go like that, round 2. Okay, yeah, that's good. Let's do round 2. Let's do a couple of decimal places. So I'll do round 2 like that. Let's try round 1 as well to see how that looks. Cool. Yeah, let's just do round 2 is fine. Just so it's a little cleaner and fits on one line. Okay, cool. That's good. So we have values across the board. These are just none because they're not filled in. So we could add an else, right, for each of these just to put something there. And we'll just do an NA, right? And then so that'll put an NA there. And let's just fill these in just to make it look nicer. So I'll do an else NA. And then I'll do another else with an NA there. And then cool. So we have a front page now that's a little more handy. And then we have price, RSI 14, SMA 20, and SMA 50 for all of our symbols that we could calculate it for, which is cool. All right, so we have a nice summary page and we don't have all that wasted space. So yeah, I think, that's pretty good for this video. I think it's gone on a bit long, so we'll go ahead and stop it here. That's Tulip Indicators. That's how to use them for calculations, and feel free to experiment and try some of the other indicators and calculations and pass your prices to these indicators in different ways, different time frames, and so forth, and see what you can come up with. So that's Tulip Indicators, and stay tuned for the next video. I think we'll go ahead and fill out this UI a little bit more, and we'll probably put a trade history in there as well, just so we can keep track of our profit and losses as we're executing these automated trades. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.